This model paints addicts in an extremely negative light, and it turns the sympathies of the society that we need away from us, and it replaces it with animosity. Hi, I'm Shay, and welcome back to my channel. This next topic I want to address is an especially sensitive one. You see, I personally know how hard it is when someone starts calling us addicts insensitive things like we are all irreparable, dysfunctional criminals here to wander aimlessly throughout society simply to cause problems and mayhem. It hurts when someone like us who is already struggling is then told that we have a disease or that it was our choice that we have become addicted. The issue of drug and alcohol addiction has been a part of our society in recent times because narcotics have not only become easier to obtain, but it's actually the current choice for anxiety relief. Addicts, we have always been gaslighted. The popular narrative has consistently shown addicts as an unwanted burden in society. So today, I will be talking about an issue that is very, very close to my heart. The debate between addiction being a choice or a disease has created more problems than it has solved. It divides the very community that was supposed to provide support for us recovering addicts, but in turn, it does more harm than it does good. For decades, people from the medical profession has termed addiction as a chronic brain disease. Imagine yourself as someone trying to quit using drugs, and then the very people whom you're looking to for assistance and support, they go and tell you that you are, in a sense, defective by having a brain disease. So such a term, in my opinion, is enough to break even the strongest of people's will and desire. And believe me, addicts are one of the most vulnerable members of our society. Hearing something like this, it only sends us into a downward spiral where then escape is just next to impossible. Drugs bring about changes in the brain's responses to situations that involved reward, stress, and self-control. These changes are often long-term, and they can persist well after we've stopped abusing the drugs. But calling addiction a disease based solely on this, it cannot be justified. Any sort of repetitive action is going to change the chemical makeup of our brains. And drugs is not just any average action. So when you tell us that we have a disease, it's simply bizarre and beyond my understanding. Now, if we look at it from the other side of the debate, these folks focus more on the choice element of addiction. So, according to these individuals, no sort of a chemical reaction can force someone to become addicted. Instead, they say it is our own personal choice that makes us pursue and consume drugs. And I honestly hope you guys can see the problem that lies within this belief. Name one person that actively wants to be shunned from society. Name one individual who loves the dependency that is associated with addiction. Believe me, not one person wants to be ostracized from society. Nobody wants to be rejected. If it was left to a choice, then the world would have been free from the problem of addiction a long time ago. What are your thoughts about addiction being a disease or a choice? Please, I really would love to hear what your thoughts are on my take on this debate. So please leave a comment below. I would really love to hear from you guys. In my opinion, the debate between choice and disease is simply wrong to its very core. It is neither a disease, nor is it based solely on a choice. Addiction is a direct response to human suffering. Getting high was a method of escape. It's a doorway that takes us from our dark and painful world to a place that is free from all that worry. And in that moment, it is bliss for us because it simply is our only break from the hell that has become our reality. Us addicts, we have tragic past, and that past, it forces us to find relief in the dark and unforgiving world of narcotics. Whether it was an abusive relationship or neglect, it's trauma that we don't understand nor know what to do with. All addicts have something in our past that takes us down that tragic path. The best response to addiction can never be judgment, nor is there a miracle cure. The only, and I repeat, the only viable and successful treatment for addiction is dealing with past trauma and helping us from our psychological and our physical wounds. The model that we as a society are currently using to treat addiction is fundamentally incorrect. We do not attempt to cure the illness. Instead, we aim to cure symptoms. We take vulnerable and traumatized individuals and we're re-traumatizing them so that they fit into society's model of addiction treatment. Each one of us carry our own burdens and problems. So instead of fitting us all into one category, we should attempt to help the individual, diagnose and help each person on an individual level so that we are successful in reducing addiction in our world. One of the most prolific researches into the issue of choice versus disease, it was undertaken by Dr. Marc Lewis, and he himself was once a drug addict. And he also views addiction as neither a disease nor is it a choice. He analyzes the disease research model and he agrees with its assumptions of drugs changing the brain's chemical makeup. But he takes the research further and he states that the brain can also be changed by any regular act or practice. According to Dr. Lewis, addiction is directly related to the release of dopamine in our body. Addicts in active addiction, we tend to look only at the short term rather than the long run, as using any drug, it increases the dopamine level of our body. So simply put, abusing drugs brings relief and happiness, which then alleviates our suffering. In his research, Dr. Lewis also found that contrary to popular belief, the human brain continues to develop late into adolescence. And any problems that is faced during this time, it only has an adverse effect on the development of the brain. He further modifies his theory by saying that the brain is not designed to maintain a long-term self-inhibition. So by keeping this in mind, it's not the fault of addicts that we're not in control of our behavior. Our body simply cannot stop itself from needing the drug to function. We're not able to say no to drugs, and this was also seen in the failure of Nancy Reagan's Just Say No campaign. This campaign was started during the 1980s as a part of the United States war on drugs, and it was a massive, massive failure because it just did not bring the fundamental psyche of active addiction into consideration. I'll link the article in the description or a pinned comment that will explain more about Nancy Reagan's Just Say No campaign. Many addicts are receptive to the disease model because then we're no longer held responsible for our actions or our condition. It's extremely disempowering for us addicts, as in we are then left to the whims of doctors with this belief. Recovering from addiction must be a personal choice, and only a personal choice to turn your life around can be beneficial for the long run. Thus, the loss of the stigma associated with calling addiction a disease, which in my opinion is not true. Calling addiction a disease has done nothing for the image of addicts, nor has society accepted us as equal members. In contrast, by calling addiction a product of choice is also wrong, because according to that argument, us as addicts should be blamed for our situation, and we can stop whenever we want. This implies that us as addicts, we are morally deficient or just lazy, and that we simply don't want to stop using. This model paints addicts in an extremely negative light, and it turns the sympathies of the society that we need away from us, and it replaces it with animosity, which is just detrimental, and it adds additional suffering to our plight. In conclusion, addiction is not the primary problem. Addiction is an attempt to solve a problem. The real question is, how did the addiction arise? The correct question isn't why the addiction. Instead, we need to be asking, why the pain? That will lead to an examination of your life. And I would like to say that addiction is neither a disease nor is it a choice. As a recovered addict myself, I don't see myself as morally inept, nor am I diseased in any sense. I have a developmental disorder, and my struggle with addiction was a direct result of my childhood trauma and emotional pain. And every single day, I make a decision to work very hard on my own personal growth and to set my life back on track. I found escape through drugs, and due to the nature of drugs, I became addicted, and I struggled with addiction for 22 years. But now that I am clean and actively working on myself, I would like to say to every suffering addict out there, you are not alone. You got this. You can beat addiction. You are a magnificent human being who is deserving, and there is nothing that a human being cannot do. I have full belief in you. Make a choice right now to turn your life around, just as I did. Do not let your past define your future. I want to continue helping you guys and others like us. And for that, I just ask for your support to please help me spread my message. All you have to do is please subscribe to my channel, like, share my videos, leave a comment, so that other people can know that there's this random friend on the internet, me, that relates to them, and I'm really willing to help. Words are powerful, but our actions, they're penetrating. Our actions affect and shape others that are around us. So be the change in the world that you want to see, and I will see you in the next video.